What if the next chapter of your life could actually be one of the most freeing, fulfilling, and empowering seasons yet? Welcome to Always Ageless with Valerie V, where we challenge the way we think about aging and we open the door to new possibilities. I'm Valerie Van De Zilver, and today we're talking about something that touches nearly every family at some point: navigating the transition into the next phase of life. My guest, Alicia Chrastil, has spent over 40 years helping seniors and their families make these decisions, not just practically, but emotionally. And certainly that is the hardest part. She's the founder of Nebraska Savvy Seniors and a true advocate for helping people feel informed, supported, and even excited about what's ahead. Alicia, I am so glad you're here. And if you can help people feel excited about their next phase, that certainly is a huge accomplishment. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to Always Ageless.
Thank you, Valerie, for having me. It's a real privilege and an honor to be asked to be on your show. I've heard a lot about it. Now I get to experience it firsthand. So
Oh,
thank you.
thank you. Yes, we're glad to have you. Alicia, let's talk about your background after all these years of working with seniors. Can you take us to a moment that really stayed with you, one that really changed how you see this next stage of life?
Oh, there's so many really in working with seniors and seeing their struggles and their pains and their for some people aging is a negative process, and for others they're looking forward to every day and making the most of it. And seeing somebody even go from being that excited about life to not being excited about it can really impact you. And just seeing the changes, that some of the changes are gradual that people make as they start aging, and seeing how their world just becomes a little bit smaller inch by inch. And for some people, that can be really, really hard, and some people can be really optimistic about it. And so for me, I was always wanting to see, what is it about them that they can just remain so positive and optimistic, and want to keep going and keep reaching out to other people as they age.
Well, what's something that you've seen? You've helped so many families, and we're in a group where we talk every day about helping families and how we can make this a better process for them and help make their have a better impact on their life. What's some of the things that you've seen over and over that families just don't want to face, but eventually they have to?
Well, I think families and individuals themselves, they don't want to actually face the fact that they're aging. I know in our community, we're having seminars for seniors, and, for most people, that starts in their 50s. And I have people in their 70s saying, well, I'm just not ready for that yet. I'm not at that stage yet. And the biggest thing I see is the lack of planning because of that little bit of denial in there, and then that lack of planning. If something happens, an event happens, a health crisis or something like that happens, then all those decisions have to be made right away. And sometimes they lose control over those decisions. And when they lose control, then I think that's when we get all the pushback, like, I'm not going there, I'm not going to do that, I don't want to do that. And then they feel like they are losing a lot more because it's such a rapid let go of what they have.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with you. It's interesting that you talk about this because of all the interviews we've had, almost 100 interviews here at Always Ageless, and we ask people for their advice. And of course, the most common thread we hear is be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. And we've talked about this in other ways that, we all plan for having a baby, right? We have a baby, we know it's going to happen. The baby's going to come. We have to have diapers. They're going to be 6 months. They're going to start to walk. They're going to do this. They're going to be terrible twos. But there's something about aging that it's almost, I won't say impossible, but certainly it's very difficult to plan for.
Yeah.
Um, so what does that mean, planning for growing older? And we hear people talk, oh, you have to have a will or a trust or whatever. But at least I kind of think it's relevant, but it's not really the hard part.
No, And I think the hard part is just facing the fact that we are going to get older and we don't know what the future is. When we're having a baby, nowadays we know, are we having a boy or a girl? Are we
Yeah.
having twins or triplets? What school are they going to go to? We got all these plans that we can make. But
Yeah.
when you're age, it's so uncertain. Are we going to be healthy? Are we going to have a health event? Are we going to fall down the stairs and break our leg? Are we going to need to have, everything on one floor? Are we going to have to make our doors wide enough for wheelchairs? We just don't know what's going to happen to us. And so I think it's the fear of unknown, and also the thinking that that's not going to happen to me, right? Because when
Sure.
we're in our 30s, I'm not going to get old. I was born in my 30s, right? I'm
Sure.
not
Yeah.
going to get old. Those Sorry about those people, but they got old. I That's not going to happen to me. Well, guess what? Time waits for no one,
Yeah.
right? And it's going to happen, and we don't know. So it's better to be prepared and start looking at our options so that we at least know what they are. We don't have to make decisions, but we could write down on a piece of paper, hey, I really like this senior living community, or I really want so and so to help me, or I want to try to age in place at home as long as I can. And if so, these are the people that I would like to have help me. So it's okay to just be aware of what your options are. Sometimes people don't even know what their options are.
And that's also, well, certainly that's a good point. But the other thing is, I think that um, the people don't think of aging as just another stage in their life. And we went through this recently at our house where we moved, and we decided to just get rid of everything. We got rid of everything except our clothes, our pots and pans, and our favorite dishes, which we replaced. And and so we talked about the fact that I kept saying, because of what I've learned with all of you guys every morning, we talk about this, that it's just another stage. We still have the memories. No one can ever take from us where we were when we walked down the Champs Elysees, and when we went to visit his parents in Holland, and when we had our honeymoon. Nobody can take those memories away. And having the physical things isn't that important. We're just in another stage. And I think that that's something that's people just don't realize. They don't accept. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the things that we can take with us are the priceless things, are the things that we can't buy, the things that we can't purchase. And sometimes those things are like relationships and the people that we love. Sometimes those are taken away from us without our permission, right? People die, our friends come and go, and our family members pass away. But that makes it really hard to want to go on some days, I think, for a lot of us.
It is. And moving and going to assisted living, for example, it's not the old thought of, and we can talk about this later, it's not the old thought of putting you in a nursing home.
Yes.
Right now, there's so much more to think about and so much more life left. And to think about just trying to accept it as it's just another stage,
Yeah.
right? Just another stage.
And if you are, if you went to a nursing home in the 60s, right? What did you see? You saw a lot of it's so much different than today. And if you still have that misconception or the conception of that's the way it is, and there's going to be people strapped to a wheelchair, you know,
With a
wandering down the
bib on,
halls,
yeah,
not where
yeah,
they're going to go with a bib on it, dribbling down themselves. That's not, you don't see that
no,
nowadays.
no.
And they are not nursing homes. They are communities where people can go, they can have fun and they can thrive. And it's like, I see some of these and it's like, hey, this is like living in the Ritz Hotel or even better. Why wouldn't somebody want to go here? What's the deal? They're going to actually make my bed and do my laundry, and I'm going to have all these meals prepared by a chef and all these fun things to do. And they're going to have outings and take trips. And, it's something I'm looking forward to, actually.
Of course, the only part that goes with that is the cost, and that's another issue. Some people are
Yes.
prepared for, and some people aren't, and some people don't have the ability to pay for it. And that's another challenge. But um,
And that's another reason why we need to start talking about aging when we're in our 20s and our 30s and our 40s, so that we can start preparing for that and start saving for that and start planning for that and start looking forward to these golden years in retirement and planning them and making them what we want. Because if one of those events don't happen, we want to grab the most zest out of life that we can possibly get.
We absolutely do. We absolutely do. And I think about, what could I contribute if I was in an assisted living community? My mom is in one, and she's so talented, and she loves to do puzzles and games, but she's not very happy there. And I keep thinking, why doesn't she start a puzzle club, right? Why doesn't she say, okay, on Tuesday afternoons between 2 and 3, we're playing categories or whatever, right? And and take the initiative to make your life a little bit better while you're in that stage. So
Yeah.
that's difficult. Have you ever walked into a home and so what happens with you? So people will call you, is that correct? Or they're either people who you were your real estate clients or their children, and they reach out to you, or they're people you meet through your community workshops. And then they ask you to come into their home. And now let me ask you a question. Alicia, is a lot of the time, is it the adult children who reach out to you first, or is it the parents?
It is usually the client themselves, 9 times out of 10, that reaches out to us first. If it's a family member that's reaching out to us, it's usually in a crisis mode. And so that's a lot different than when somebody will come to us on their own initiative and
Mhm.
want to start kind of pre-planning and looking around and maybe moving from that big two-story house into a all one level, or wanting to maybe sell their all one level to move into a senior living community. And those situations are a lot different because those are people who are looking forward to that next move. They're still in control. They're still making the
Right,
decisions. When the
right.
children call us, they've come home for Thanksgiving or Easter break and they haven't seen mom and dad for a couple of years. And they're like, oh my gosh, we need to find help. Things aren't the way they should be.
Yeah. And then do you have a lot of situations where the kids think that it's worse than the parents think it is?
Yes, because I think some people, we don't notice the gradual decline in ourselves as much. We can see, just like any of us, when we see somebody we went to high school with and we think, oh my gosh, they're really old. And then, we go home and look in the mirror. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm there too. And so that's kind of a little reality check. So I think that's the way it is for everybody. They don't see the day to day things just slipping away little bit by little bit. And when their kids come home, they're seeing, hey, the house isn't clean like mom used to keep it. And there's no fruit in the refrigerator, or they've lost a lot of weight, or, she never let her hair go like that. And she would never wear dirty clothes like that. And the mail's piling up and their things aren't being tended to the way they should be. And so when the kids come home and they see that acceleration in that decline, I think that's a scary thing for them.
It is. It is. And it's not only just when the kids come away from me. I was seeing my mom every day, and then noticed something in her house that I thought, oh no,
Yeah,
I can't let this continue.
yeah.
Or I should at least try not to let it continue. So on to that thought then. Have you ever walked into a home and immediately thought, oh my gosh, this is more than just a move?
Yeah. Well, we walk into all different kinds of situations. Um, just most recently, I walked into a home and a man who he was the same age as I am. He's 68 years old, but he had some cognitive impairment, and walked into his home, and it was basically like a hoarder situation. His house had just gotten away from him, and he didn't have any running water in his home
Oh,
for 2 years, no running
oh,
water. And he'd been taking showers over at the neighbors.
oh,
And, there was just a bucket in the basement for him to use the toilet. And those are extreme situations. But sometimes the situations are really extreme. And we have a lot of seniors in our communities, in our towns, in our states that need help, but they don't know they need help for one reason or another, or they're too embarrassed because things have progressed so far. They're too embarrassed to reach out for help. So those are one extremes. And then you have the other, on the other spectrum, where people are living and they're active and they know what's going on and they're planning for the future. So we see them all, from the good and the bad.
And when you finally came in contact with that gentleman, was it because he reached out to you?
um i was i was I was brought into it as a consulting, a realtor, because somebody that, you know, um, they weren't quite sure what they should do and how to handle that. So that's when they brought in me to, help them and consult with them. So, but that person had actually reached out to her just because she was walking down the street, and he saw that she was a realtor, and he ran up to her and says, "Hey, I need to sell my house. I need to move." So he knew that he needed to make some changes. The scary thing is the neighbors also knew for 2 years, and didn't get him
Didn't
any
do
help.
anything about
So
it.
yeah.
So sad. It's interesting. We had a situation last fall that was similar. We walked into the house and their kitchen sink was not functioning, and they were doing dishes in the bathroom sink, and they had called the plumber, and this lady was literally living off of social security and at the minimum social security,
Oh yeah.
and a plumber came and quoted her like
Mm.
$6,000. And I said, well, let me try my plumber. My plumber fixed her sink for $95,
Oh wow. Wow.
which is very, very, very sad.
That's when it's really important to have resources that are honest and ethical and that you can trust and that will just get the job done and not mess around.
Yeah, yeah. And someone that if they and your that your client trusts you enough that you can call your trusted resources and bring them in, and your client will be confident that whatever decision you make is good for them.
Exactly. Yeah. So
That's so
true.
important.
Yep.
Can you share a story when someone went from totally resistant or afraid to actually feeling peaceful or maybe even excitement about what was next?
Yeah. So I have a friend that I know, and she needed to be in a senior living environment for quite some time, and I kept talking to her about it, and she was I that's not for me, and she was very defiant, and maybe even got mad at me a couple of times because I maybe pushed her a little bit too far. And then and I've known her for decades, and then I got a phone call. I moved. Oh, you moved. Where'd you go? And she said she went to one of a really nice senior living community here in town, and I was very happy about it. But she was a little bit. She didn't want to tell me she was moving because I don't know if it was pride or she wanted to surprise me. So, but now that she's there, she had a period of adjustment where she just didn't know if she really fit in. She may have got a little bit depressed. And just recently, I got a call from her saying, "You know what? I love it here, and I don't think God's done with me yet. I got this and this and this and this I got to get done." So she went from the whole spectrum. And so she's happy as a clam and looking forward to the future and wanting to make a difference in the community that she's in.
What a great story. What a great story. And do you have ever situations where the adult children get involved and the parents are really resistant, and then they actually come around and decide that it's maybe a good thing for them after all?
Yes, that does happen. And sometimes I think the defiance comes from the children telling their parents what they have to do
Oh,
and trying to
definitely.
take that control away from them. And when they give that control back in, we have a system that we've developed here with our team, our real estate team, and we've actually trademarked it, and it's the Savvy Senior Transition System. And we go into a home and we slow everything down. If things are escalating, especially with children, sometimes we just try to slow that down, talk to everybody involved, find out what the situation is. and then we assess that situation. Okay. And then we want to verify all the information that's being handed to us, either from the client themselves or from the children, and make sure that we're talking to the client and letting them know what their options are after we've assessed what those needs are. And then if we need to, sell the real estate, we can evaluate that property, but we want to make sure that the plan is their plan. And so we call it your plan. And so that's SAVVY, the Savvy Senior Transition System. And that's what it doesn't matter. Sometimes we use this on people who aren't even seniors because it's just, lots of times people just, especially in real estate, they just want to go in there and they just want to get that listing.
Yeah.
And they aren't worried about who's going to help the senior pack. Where are they going to go? It's like, we are not creating homeless seniors here. And so we want to have a plan, but we want them involved in those decisions. We want them to know it's their plan. And when they feel that they're part of that situation, you'll see the whole dynamics change. Don't you find that too, Valerie?
Yes, and we hear so much from our friend Sam Craddock, how we're not supposed to treat them like children, that just because they became older in age doesn't mean that they are children. And that is something that's important. And you've seen this, you just talked about how you'll have um, children that'll talk in a doctor's office or in front of you, talk to you as though their parents aren't even sitting there.
You'll find the doctors will even do that.
Yeah.
Or when you're in someplace and they'll say, "Oh, what are we going to wear today?" Well, we're not wearing the same clothes. Don't
Right.
talk to me like that. That's just ugh. It's
Like being in a restaurant and the server says, "Well, what are we eating today?" I said, I don't know what we're eating, right?
I know what I want.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what I want.
Yeah.
That's pretty annoying. Yeah, and so dealing with the children is certainly challenging. But then, what do you do when you're in a situation where you know that the adult, your client, our client, really isn't able to make their own decisions, that they're beyond the point of being able to be reasonable? Not that they have Alzheimer's or dementia, but where they just can't think it through.
Yeah. So I still like to just slow it down, and I still like to talk to them and let them know what's going on, even if they might forget about it in 15 minutes. I still want them involved in the conversation, and still want the children to know that we're going to treat them as an adult, and we're going to talk to them and think it through and maybe repeat. So if we have to repeat things several times, until they make sure that they're cognitive, but we just want to make sure that we're including them in these decisions, and that we're not talking down to them, but we're talking to them, and bring the children into that conversation and let them know that we want to show them both respect, and we have to make sure that when we talk to the children, the age is sometimes those children, they can be, if their parents are 80 or 100, the children can be 80, right?
Yeah, I know, we think of that, right?
So
My mom has two children who are in their 80s.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't want to talk down to anybody, and
No.
you want to acknowledge that, hey, I understand that you're doing the best thing here for your parents. Have you thought of this? Or would you be open to thinking about this? And leave it open for both of them to be able to make educated decisions and not talk down to any one of them.
Yes, and that's challenging. And also, just as we talked at the beginning, every situation is different. Every family's different. Don't you find that?
Everyone is totally different, and they're the same too. You know what I mean? They all have the same goal in mind. They all want to help. And it's when some of these decisions are made in the crisis mode, that's when the tension builds and the anxiety builds, and it just works out a lot easier if some of those plans have been made ahead of time so people know what they want.
And when you talk about crisis mode, what kind of things are a crisis mode to you?
Well, that could be a health scare. That could be, someone's had a heart attack, or someone's had a stroke, or someone's fallen down the stairs, or something in the health realm has happened that makes it so that they're not able to live alone anymore, or that they need a little bit of help maybe somebody coming into the home to help them. So those are some things that can be really scary. There can actually be changes in their financial situation where
Yes.
they aren't able to afford to fix up this house anymore, and things are falling apart around them. So the finances can be a big thing.
And that is very important because
Yeah.
there's just not um, amount of endless resources financially,
No.
you
And
know.
sometimes they may have their house and it's all paid for, but are they able to tap into those resources in their homes? Do they know what reverse mortgages are? Do they know, are they wanting to sell their home so that they can move to a senior living and use that money? Or could maybe they possibly, if it's paid for, rent that home and pay for their senior living out of that, the proceeds from their rent? Do they need a property manager to get this in place? Because if they have a nice home and they can rent that out, lots of times that could pay for a big chunk for that senior living community for a long time, and their property is still going to appreciate.
Mhm. Yes, that's true. That's true. And then there's a thing of a reverse mortgage, but a reverse mortgage, you have to live in the house.
Yeah.
So you can't take that money, although there are some home equity lines now where you can. But
Yeah.
to find a home equity situation where you don't have to qualify, where you can take that money and pay for long-term care. And
Mhm.
again, the same thing is it's the unknown. One of the things that I saw in several interviews, again, it's the unknown. How long is my loved one going to live? What are they going to need? What do they like? We go into this assisted living community and it's all good right now, but then something changes there and they don't want to stay there. And it's just the always unknown, it seems to me,
It is. And
especially
things
as they get older.
really
Do you find
change.
that?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
you talk about families that are or couples or individuals who go into assisted living and they have a great time. They're active and they do a lot of things. But when you're 100 years old, you don't have those same options of being as active and doing things. And I think this is really a challenge. It's interesting. Let's talk about age a minute, Alicia. So just like you, I go into assisted living communities all the time, and many of them have a centurion board where they have the pictures of the people who are 100 or older. I was in one last week where there were only 3 people that were over 100, and they said, "Well, your mom should come here, and then she'll be our fourth person." And maybe they'll have one or two or three, but really not that many older people over 100. Do you think that's because there aren't? And then I'll ask, "What's your average age here?" I say 82, which I don't think is very old.
Yeah.
So do you find that the challenges change as people get older and they get to that really late stage?
Well, and they can get to that late stage at any age because
Yes,
we all
that's
know
true.
it's about the stage they're in and not just the age, not just the number. I was at a birthday party a few months ago for a 100-year-old gentleman that I've known for over 50 years, close to 60 years. And to me, he's just sharp as a tack, and looking towards forwards to the future, and just a really wonderful guy. And sometimes we see 50-year-olds who are looking more and acting more like a 100-year-old than some 100-year-olds, right?
Yes,
So I think it's all relative, but as to their outlook in life and their physical condition, and sometimes they got really good genes that helps them live to 100. But there's a lot of advances today in medical and our diet and all these different things that are helping people live longer, happier, more fulfilling lives after they reach 100. It used to be a real nominally, whatever
anomaly.
that word
Yep,
is, for someone to live to be 100. And
yep.
now we have, like you said, 3 or 4 in one senior living community, and how many in our towns. And I think these people should be celebrated, and we should have some kind of big fanfare for people who are making it this long,
Yes,
and still
yes.
still an active member of society.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And they should be treated in some respect as though they have their own stage.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, they should. And they're leading the way, and we should be talking to them and we should be interviewing them. What's it like? What was it like 90 years ago? I mean, 90 years ago, you're talking about what would that have been?
Yeah.
19, what year? That
Well, my mom's 106. She was born in 1919. Just think about that.
1919. My dad was born in 1919, so my dad
Right.
and your mom would have been the very same age. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because when people say, "What's her birth date?" I say 10, 18, 19, and they look at her. It's not 19. I say, "No, 1919." Right? They think I'm telling them it's 2019, which of course it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different. Very,
I
very,
mean, my
very,
dad,
very
when he
different.
was a little boy, he slept the nights in the summertime down in Kansas. They had a covered wagon, and that was his
Is
bedroom. They had a
that right?
one-room stone house,
Is that
and
right?
so his summertime bedroom was their covered wagon.
Really? That's yeah, what a
I mean,
great
we can't
story.
imagine having our kids sleeping in a wagon in the backyard.
No, I know. I know. I know. My mom was one of 16 children,
Oh, wow.
and she was the middle child. So imagine 16 children in a farmhouse at that age. And her mom passed away when she was 57 after having 16 children.
Oh, my.
And my grandpa had 5 by his first wife who passed away.
Mm,
It's quite a life story.
yeah.
When you've helped so many people along these stages of life, how has it changed the way you think about aging and your own future?
Well, I think uh, my feelings about aging have always kind of evolved where I'm at. I remember when my older brother turned 21 and I was 19, I thought
Wow.
he was ancient. He's like 21. He's an old adult now, right? And then when
Yes.
I got to be 21, it was like, oh, people that are 30 or 40, they're getting up there, right? And then once I got to be 40, it was like, well, those 60-year-olds are, that's probably really, really old. And now that I'm close to 70, it's like, this isn't really as bad as I thought it was going to be, right? So I think our perspective on aging changes. I appreciate aging because, not everybody gets to age. I lost my mother at a very young age and my dad not too many years after that. So
Uh,
I really didn't have parents after I was about in my mid 20s. And
Oh,
of
I'm
course, my
so sorry.
grandparents had all died before my parents had died. So, I didn't get to be around a lot of aging
Oh,
people
that's
and get to have those grandparent talks and great grandparents with my children. So I really appreciate older people. And I think for me, serving older people just kind of helps me fill that little need I have for grandma and grandpas. So, I look at aging as a gift. I look at taking care of people who are older as a gift to me, something that for me, myself personally, and it's an honor and a privilege. And when I don't want to be insensitive, but when I hear people complaining about, oh, having to do this for mom or dad, or whatever, I just like, oh, how lucky you are to be able to do that.
I know. Yes, so many people tell me what a blessing it is to have my mom at the age she is, and I know that I am really, really, really fortunate. Some of my friends lost their moms when they were like 14 years old, and one of my friends used to climb a tree because she thought if she was in a tree, she'd be closer to her mom, who was in heaven.
Oh,
So those are all sad. And I think I enjoy visiting my mom as much because I enjoy being around older people. I ask them something about their
yeah,
life. Where did you come from? How long have you been here? Um, you know, yeah,
yeah.
interesting. Very interesting. And
And I
again,
find that
no, you go ahead.
and I find that in working with the aging population, um, lots of times they are the most unappreciated, and but they appreciate what we do for them the most. And they appreciate the visits, they appreciate the phone calls, they appreciate you bringing a cookie or a little few little bouquets of flowers from your garden. They appreciate all those little things and they take the time. and they love you, love it when you take that time with them too.
Yes,
And it I think there needs to be more of that, just slowing down and just appreciating each other.
absolutely. That is so true. What's something about this stage of life that people completely underestimate in a good way?
That they underestimate.
Hmm. About being
I think,
older.
well, and I think they underestimate the things that they can do as they get older, and the contribution that they can still make to the people around them. And I don't care if you're in a wheelchair and you're living at home or you're in a senior living community, there's always somebody who's less fortunate than you. There's always somebody that needs, a smile or someone to come alongside them and say, "How are you doing today?" Right? And you can. There's so much that a person can do, no matter where they're at.
Yes, that is so true. And be an inspiration to other people. If you
Yeah,
are healthy and you're a little bit older, you can be such an inspiration to other people who are around you. Um,
yeah. Because lots of times, we go through things in life, and all of us have different trials that we're thinking, oh, why did this happen to me? But if we can take those trials, and I had a friend who she used to say, you can make lemonade out of those lemons, right?
yeah.
And lots of times the very things that we're going through is something that we can help somebody else go through down the road. So in life, some of us have more of those things that we can share. We can help others get through as we go through those, and we can learn from each situation. And hopefully, when we get to a certain age, we want to keep learning too, because every day we can learn something new.
I have two questions. So I
Uh-huh.
think that I was with in a group last week where we're talking about aging and mostly related to the mind. And there's so many people who talk about aging as though it's one category. But a child, we have their babies, they're the toddler twos, they're they're toddlers, they're elementary school, they're junior high, they're high school. But it almost seems, Alicia, like once someone becomes 60, they're a senior, right? That's all they are, all the same. And and I think um, that's so underestimating all the different stages that people go through. And I wonder if they're also then let's talk to the ability you talked about, the contribution that people can make. So and we see this now, you and I see this in the group that we're in, opportunities for older people to still be working or for people to be contributing in some other way. And I almost think it's a shame that once they hit an age, then they're just a senior.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not a one size fits all, I think that we're finding out. And we're actually having a seminar coming up here in the next couple of months, and it's called Seniorpreneurs.
Yes.
And we have entrepreneurs. Well, lots of times if people if they've retired, they're like, hey, I want to do more than, tend my garden. Not that that's a bad thing, but sometimes they're used to being out and about, and they thrive on that, the community involvement. And so for different people, there's always something that we've always wanted to do,
Yes.
right? Whether it's oil painting or taking a class, or, I've always wanted to work in the makeup counter at Walgreens, and I've still
Is
not gotten to do that,
is
but
that
I might
right?
do that someday.
Well, good
So
for you.
but there's always something that maybe we want to do. And what we're finding is there are seniors that are going back into that workspace because they have a drive and they have a mission and they have something to share, and they have a lot of experience, and they've ran businesses or worked for this or done this. And now they're doing things on their own terms. They want to do it the way they want to do
Yes.
it. They
Yes.
want to work the hours they want to work. They want
Yes.
it to fit into their life, and, if it doesn't, they don't really care because they'll find somebody else or a way to do it, right? And so we even find seniors who are starting their own businesses past the age of 65. And people are saying, well, like for me, people are saying, when are you going to retire? It's like,
Well,
I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. I'm enjoying what I do so much right now that just because I reached a certain number doesn't mean I want to stop.
Right.
right?
Right.
Why do I have to do that?
Right.
Because society has said it's time for you to stop. No, it's time for me to get going. I don't know how much time I have left, and I have all this stuff I want to do.
And isn't it great that there can no longer be age discrimination? So really,
Isn't it though?
yeah, for what that means, I read stories of people who are 90 years old and greeters at Walmart.
Yeah,
And maybe there's other things they would like to do, but it gives them the opportunity to get out, go talk to people,
yeah.
and just be out there and be social.
And
So,
don't you think socialization is a big part of aging?
oh, it's a huge part, absolutely is a
Huge.
huge part.
And you
And they,
take that away, and that your world gets smaller.
it absolutely does. It
And then
does, yes.
isolation starts to set in, and then that's when we get depressed, and our body starts to decline. And I think it doesn't matter if you're getting out or getting on the phone or getting on the internet. There's so many ways that we can connect with people nowadays.
And that's one of the great things about age tech, isn't it? That there's so
Yeah,
many things being created for families to be able to connect to their loved ones, even if they're, across the world, or for people to be able to connect with each other, or programs like Loop Village, which is an app on your probably your phone, but also your television, where you can be a part of a garden club in London, or have tea in London, or walk down the streets of Paris with someone because you have
oh, that
access
sounds
to
like
that.
fun.
Doesn't that sound like fun? I know.
And you can
That's
play games on the internet with other people. I
sure,
love to
yes.
play pitch, and sometimes at night I'll get on the internet and I'm playing pitch with people from across the country.
Oh, I don't know how to play that, so you'll have to show me.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
fun.
I know some people play Wordle, and I am not a Wordle person. I don't do so well at that, but yeah, there's so many opportunities, and I think from an understated or underestimated viewpoint, that's one thing that people can do, um, and I think it's just important to realize that, just like you said, people say, "When are you going to retire?" Well, why do you have why does all of a sudden 65 make you the age when you have to
Yeah,
retire? And thinking that when you and I got married, probably we thought our parents were old. And then we look back now and our parents were in their 60s when we got married. I mean, that's
yeah,
actually in their 50s, right? Well, they weren't old at all.
yeah.
Was That's funny. Is there a person,
Yes, and
Ali?
when we look back at their pictures when they were, in their 30s or 40s or 50s, and we thought they were old, we look back at them now and it's like, oh, they're so much younger than I am now. Look at them. They were still, doing this and doing that. And
I know
it's all perspective. And,
it is.
if you're retired and you're enjoying it, hey, that's great. If you're 70 and you're just starting a new business, that's great. But we got to stop putting people in the boxes and saying, this is where you should be.
Yeah,
Instead, we
absolutely.
need to say, where do you want to be? How can we help you get there?
That's right. And have you found people that you wish do you have you come in contact with people who really would like to do something else, and they don't realize even that it's available to them?
Yes. Yeah.
Someone who wants to work at the makeup counter at Walgreens. Do you ever
Yeah.
have anybody that says, "Oh, I wish I could," and then you're able to help them see that it is possible?
Yeah. Yeah. And that is fun when you can able to encourage them and point them into that direction, or if they wanted to, do flower arrangements, and maybe they could work at the local grocery store and arrange flowers or something like that, or even volunteer. I mean, sometimes it isn't about the money, it's just about wanting to be of service to somebody or being a help and having a reason to get up and go. And that helps them in so many different areas. It helps them mentally and physically. It helps fulfill some of that socialization and being able to reach out to somebody and make yourself feel useful and needed and helpful. I mean, that can do a lot for someone.
It definitely can. I think that there also would be opportunities. What if someone could go read at another community where people are um, less able to function, and
Yeah,
other people could go and read to them or play games with them or
yeah,
be their companion, so to speak. And what a
There are so many
loss.
opportunities available for people to reach out. And I'm not talking about just retired people reaching out, but we need the younger community. We need the kids in junior high and high school and the college kids and the kids with babies to be visiting our seniors because they love being around people who, are young and vibrant and they just bring another element to that day for them.
Definitely. There's a place in Holland, and I don't know whether it's just one or whether there's more than one, but that if college kids live in this community, they're given free room and board, but they have to help within the care of the older adults who are the residents.
Yeah.
And so that interaction of ages and minds is so amazing, also.
We have a community similar to that in our community, and it's an independent living community. They do have a continental breakfast where everybody can go down and mingle and have breakfast in the morning every day. But what they have are medical students and nursing students and people that are in college that can rent the same units in this big senior living independent living complex, and they get to interact with each other. And so you have young kids in college with 70, 80, 90, 100-year olds, and so that's really interesting.
Yeah, what a great opportunity that would be for both sides.
Oh, it is.
Is there a family you've helped or an individual you've helped that you'll just never forget, that in your walk and your journey with working with families and seniors, that just made a real impact on you, that no matter what, you'll always remember that experience?
Oh yes, there's several of them, but I guess I would have to say that would be um my Bill and Jesse, because they were like my parents. And they you just get attached to people. But and they had a daughter in Chicago, and she was a clinical psychologist, and they just needed somebody to come along and help their parents. And I had been asked by this one lady if I would take on a case, and because I used to do in-home companion care. And I kept saying no, and it wasn't so much about the time commitment, but it's about that personal commitment, because we all know it can start out to just be a couple hours a week, but it'll end up being probably more. And I don't remember, if I think I was with this family for about 10 years. And I really felt like I was part of their family. And in fact, I just uh, the daughter, we call each other sisters. And I go to Chicago and visit her, and we send each other birthday cards, and we still text. And they've been gone for over 20 years.
Oh.
So it's very rewarding to help people, and to be able to um, be invited to this family circle sometimes that we are in. And it's just quite an honor when you get that privilege. And it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's some of these relationships are will stay with you for your whole life.
Yes, they will, and it's so rewarding when the family appreciates you also,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's take just a minute. We don't have a long time left. We have a few minutes, but let's just take a minute and talk about, tell us briefly, how did you come into this? Were you a nurse? Did you work with seniors? What brought you to the point where you decided that was what you wanted to do in your career?
Well, I just kind of, like I said, I lost my parents when I was really young. I was 17, lost my mom, and then I think I was 20 when I lost my dad. So it just kind of evolved. I Right out of high school, I went into nursing, and I almost graduated nursing school, but I had a little glitch with the system, and I was young and stupid, and I quit just a few weeks
Oh.
before graduating. So I went to work in a nursing home after that for about 3 years. And I was also going to University of Nebraska for human development. And my sister goes, "Oh, why don't you come and go to beauty school with me?" And it's like, I don't want to go to beauty school. Our mom was a hairdresser. I never wanted I always said my house will never sell like permanents. Well, never say never is a
We
motto
had
that I
permanents in those days.
established very early in life, because here I go do hair. And my my sister, we both went to be cosmetologists. I went along, and I opened a hair salon and worked for an international, Glenby International, and it was real close to a senior center in our community. And so I would always have these specials and stuff for seniors that were coming in so that make it more affordable. And so I didn't really know I was doing all these things for seniors. With it just kind of naturally evolved. And then I stopped to have babies, and when my kids were young, I went into real estate like in the first time in 1981, and
Oh,
lots of times I had several different jobs that I would do all together. I babysat and took care of, um, did in-home companion care, and so um, my husband and I, we always loved antiques, so we started an antique mall and we ran that for 20 years,
oh
along
my.
with doing the real estate and the in-home companion care. And after the antique mall flooded 3 times, I said, I'm not scooping mud anymore. Went back to selling real estate. And I just told my broker, I said, I only want to sell, 3 or 4 houses a year. Don't call me in the office and say, Alicia, why aren't you doing more? Because I'll be out of there. I wanted it on my terms. I was 60 years old. I didn't want, I've been used to running my own business. So in doing that at the antique mall, I was helping seniors with their possessions because people are
Oh,
downsizing and
there you go.
people
Yeah.
were getting rid of things, and people would come to me wanting me to help them sell their stuff or their parents' stuff. So I got the stuff part down. And then when I went back to real estate, I just naturally gravitated towards people who had stuff. And so I would do an estate sale for this client or that client and find that, I'm working for more seniors. And when my broker said, hey, you should get your SRES and be a senior real estate specialist, I said, well, what's that? And they said, well, it's somebody that just helps seniors. And I said, okay, that sounds great. I
That's
love working
absolutely
with seniors.
okay.
So that just kind of evolved. And once I took the SRES, I realized how much I don't know about working with seniors, even after working with seniors for decades. So I got my CSHP from the Senior Real Estate Institute, the Master Senior Real Estate Professional. And I just always wanted to learn more, do more, do more. And so that's when we started the Savvy Seniors Empowerment Seminars so we could educate seniors and help them and make these plans so that they don't get into those kind of situations. And after that, we started the first chapter of NAIPC, and we're just, we have workshops in our office for legacy planning. We do, just all kinds of things for seniors. We have a downsizing club where we reach out to senior living communities. My son has joined me in the real estate field and he's a veteran, so he helps senior
Oh,
veterans. We have a real estate team now in Lincoln and in Omaha with people serving seniors because there's a good way and then there's a better way, right, to
yeah.
serve
Yeah.
seniors, and we want to make sure that we're honoring them and helping them because there's a lot of different stresses when you're working with their someone who's moving, with some of those major stresses are moving, death, change in occupation, or change in location. And sometimes when we're working with seniors, we have all of those all rolled into one.
You
And so
do.
we need to help make that as stress free as possible. And we need to have all those different service providers at our hands, like you talked about, people that are vetted that can help them put all these pieces together and be able to say, hey, we got you.
We
We
do.
know what you need, and we're going to put all these pieces together and we're going to create a plan just for you.
This is really powerful to hear your stories, and thank you so much for sharing them with us. We'll have to have you come back again. Unfortunately, our time is over for today, but want to thank you for being here today and sharing not just your expertise, but your perspective and your heart and your background, your many stories, your things that have led you to where you are today. Conversations like this remind us all that stage of life isn't about slowing down. It's about making intentional, empowered choices about what comes next. And for those who are listeners and our viewers, if you're in this season or you see it coming, it's for you or it's for a loved one, start the conversations early, stay open, and know that there are incredible resources and people out there to support you. We are here at Always Ageless. Be sure to send us your email or your messages. Alicia's in the Midwest, but Alicia and I have connections and resources all over the country. So no matter where you're listening or viewing from, please reach out and let us share our resources with you to make your life always ageless. Be sure to follow us. Come back again next week. for our next conversation that inspire you to live fully at every age. So until then, stay curious, stay connected, and stay always ageless. And thank you, Alicia, so much for being with us today on
Oh, it
Always
was my
Ageless.
pleasure, Valerie. You're wonderful to talk to, and we could talk about this all day long, couldn't we?
We could, and we would love to have you come back again.
That'd be
Thank you
great.
so much.
Thank you for having
Bye
me.
bye.